Hi, how you going? In this video I'll be ranking Souls-like games from worst to best and explain why I like some of them better than the others. All the picks are based on my personal experience, but I'll also keep in mind some factors that can help us compare totally different games objectively. Replayability value, performance, optimization, and so on. Let's establish some ground rules first and get some things out of the way. Like, what is a Souls-like? In this video I'll be talking about 3D action RPG games that one way or another take inspiration from Software Soulsborne games. Difficult skill-based combat centered around positioning, evading attacks, parrying and dodging, environmental storytelling, Metroidvania-type exploration with backtracking, and various mechanics that define our favorite subgenre like bonfires, currency that you lose on death, etc. Of course, all the games on the list are non-From Software games, and I won't be including 2D Metroidvania Souls-likes, despite some of them being great. With that out of the way, let's start. Number 8 on the list is a game that I personally love dearly despite its shortcomings and flaws, and it's Bleak Faith Forsaken. The game is made by a 3-piece studio from Montenegro called Archangel Studios, and it has one of the most unique looking worlds I've ever seen in a video game. It's so mysterious and daunting and gives you a constant sense of dread as you play. And all that accompanied by the weirdest tunes from hell that perfectly fit in and make the feeling of loneliness and despair even stronger. Unfortunately, the game starts falling apart when it comes to gameplay. Like, if you're playing Souls-likes primarily for the gameplay, you should probably skip this one. Despite being oddly satisfying, the combat has a lot of jank and is floaty. The animations are stiff, and it can be quite unintuitive at times despite the tutorial pop-ups. Exploring massive areas of Omni structure is not always rewarding. You can literally walk for 5 minutes and hit a dead end with no loot or unique enemy encounter as a reward. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. The game had quite a rocky start, involving terrible optimization, some questionable decisions made by the devs, and even some asset flipping allegations drama, but at least most of the performance issues are now fixed, and dudes from Archangel Studios keep working on improving the game further. I made a bunch of Bleak Faith Forsaken videos on this channel, and like I said, I like the game a lot, but it's still really hard to recommend. To wrap it up, Bleak Faith Forsaken is a bizarre experience, and it feels like it carved a niche for itself. The game's definitely not for everyone, and I think having it at number 8 on this list is fair and square. And next up, I have a game made by Team Ninja, and it's not Neo, calm down. At number 7 we have Wulong Fallen Dynasty, and I feel like I could have ranked it higher if not for the game's abysmal performance on PC. Wulong Fallen Dynasty is set in a timeline of the Three Kingdoms period of Chinese history with a dark fantasy twist to it. One of the core mechanics of Wulong's combat is deflecting enemy attacks. Similar to Sekiro, you can deflect pretty much everything, and it's just so fun and satisfying to play around with, and the animations and sound effects that come with the package make it even more fun and addictive. What made my personal experience with Wulong so terrible is the performance, of course. Even now, after almost a year of patches and fixes, it either runs like crap or looks like soapy dog shit. And it doesn't even look that good when you sacrifice the performance for the looks. And it's a shame, because I think there's a fun game buried deep beneath this abomination of a PC port. Despite all, Wulong still holds a special place in my heart for being a gateway game to other Team Ninja titles, and if by some miracle the performance gets fixed, I'm returning and replaying the whole thing again with pleasure. But with how it is right now, and especially knowing that Neo games are silk smooth, I don't even want to touch the DLC. And next up I have a Souls-like game that, in my opinion, is your best option if you are looking to get into Soulsborne and Souls-like games and don't know where to start. And I'm talking about Mortal Shell. There are numerous reasons to consider this game a great entry point. It's short, only takes about 8 to 10 hours to finish. It's relatively easy, and there's no way to screw up your build, because in Mortal Shell you play as a foundling, this weird creature that can sort of possess various fallen warriors called shells that have pre-built characteristics, and each of them enforcing a specific playstyle. Mortal Shell has some pretty cool mechanics too, like hardening, for example, is an ability to turn into a statue at any given time and absorb all the incoming damage. Like I said, base game is very short, and I don't see myself coming back to it anytime soon, but there's also a DLC called Virtuous Cycle, which essentially is a roguelike mode where you pick a shell, pick a weapon, and then appear on the map with randomly placed enemies. You fight them, you get random upgrades that stay with you until you die. Just a standard roguelike deal, I guess. I didn't spend too much time with it, to be honest, but I'm not a big fan of roguelikes. So I think Mortal Shell is a good game, a bit of a slog when it comes to combat, but a decent Souls-like nonetheless. I reviewed Mortal Shell on this channel a year or so ago, so check the video out if you're interested. Also, Mortal Shell has this black metal atmosphere I've never seen in any other game. I mean, look at it! And at number 5 I have a series of games developed by the same team that made the OG Lords of the Fallen, and it's the Surge series. I think both Surge games are a good take on a Souls-like formula with its own unique look. Probably the best thing about them in my opinion is combat. It has this cool twist to it where you can target enemies' specific limbs to slice them off and get the components and weapons from them. And I also like the crafting system. I think they nailed that too. It has this perfect balance between crafting being necessary but not overly complicated and confusing. There's nothing much more to say about the Surge games really. The story in both games wasn't all that captivating to me at least. I remember that I kept on getting lost exploring some locations and lots of shortcuts hidden behind piles of rubbish didn't help in that regard at all. But like I said, in my opinion, the meat of it is the gameplay. I enjoyed it very much, as well as I enjoyed crafting stuff and adding new parts to my power loader from Aliens. It felt really good in terms of progression. If I had to pick one of the Surge games, I'd go with The Surge 2. It felt exactly like The Surge, but with more The Surge, if that makes sense. I also think that Deck 13, the devs, kinda redeemed themselves with the series after a poopy Lords of the Fallen game that I'm not ranking in this video, by the way. And hey, before we continue, if you want to see more Soulsborne/Souls-like related content such as game reviews, updates and streams in your feed, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified when I upload. It supports the channel greatly. Likes, shares and comments are always appreciated too. Thank you very much, and back to the video now. And at number 4 I have the game that I've said so much about on this channel that it hurts already. It's Lords of the Fallen, not to be confused with Lords of the Fallen, and I'll keep it short. It's really crazy how diverse the reviews for the game are. Some people absolutely love it, some hate it with passion, not without a reason, and some hate it with passion and still play it every day. I don't hate it, but it saddens me that Lords of the Fallen is the game that unfortunately fell into a could have been category. I can easily see some people placing it where number 8 is, so my opinion is totally biased, but I think as a single player Souls-like, Lords of the Fallen is a fantastic experience. It's beautiful, the combat is fun and engaging, the story is somewhat decent despite being trivial, the lore is good, and it has some replayability value too. I mean, there are 3 endings for you to get, one of them being the most agonizing experience out there, by the way. And you know, I probably would have ranked it higher. Hell, I'll be honest, I wanted it to be my number 1, but you probably already know all the issues the game has. The performance is somewhat decent now, with some lag spikes here and there, especially towards the second half of the game, but the multiplayer just sucks so much. PvP is poorly balanced and every match lasts like 3 seconds. Everyone just spams OP spells nowadays and there's no fun in it at all. And co-op just works terribly. It lags, it takes a million years to find a companion, and it honestly just doesn't deserve anyone's time in its current state. Hexworks, the devs, are still working on the game, releasing new patches, and they also promised us New Game Plus modifiers, item randomizers, enemy randomizers sometime soon. That should bring some attention back to the game, but ultimately I think Lords of the Fallen is done. I will be reviewing the modifiers update as soon as it comes out, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel now. And again, I love Lords of the Fallen, I'm still playing it, nearly got that platinum, and I wish I could rank it higher, but I can't. Okay, and next I have Remnant 2, Dark Souls with guns. Remnant 2 is pretty much Remnant 1, but it has more stuff, so my number 3 could have been both Remnant games combined, but I already did that with the Surge games, and I'll also be doing it again later in the video, so let it just be Remnant 2. Remnant 2 is great, and I had so much fun playing it, experimenting with builds and different archetypes. One of the coolest Remnant 2 features is that it has procedural generation, and that makes every new playthrough a different one. Obviously, after a while, you will start seeing things you've already seen, but I'd say my first 3 or so playthroughs were almost entirely different, and it almost felt like I was playing a different game every time. Another fantastic addition is of course multiplayer co-op that is seamless, by the way, and allows you to invite up to 2 friends into your world. I think the way Gunfire Games made multiplayer in both Remnant games should be a standard of how multiplayer should be in any Souls-like game. On top of that, the game is well optimized and there are 2 more DLC packs coming later this year, and I just hope they will be as good as the Awakened King that came out last year and not some weapon packs or something. Anyways, Remnant 2 is great and I think the bronze is well deserved. And at number 2 I have a game that still can be considered new. It's Lies P, man. It simply amuses me that a relatively obscure young team with no experience in Souls-likes made such a wonderful Souls-like. I mean, some people don't like the combat in Lies P, the fact that it heavily relies on perfect parries, or that it's way too linear, but you just can't ignore the overall quality of the game and the level of polish. It works like a charm, very smooth, the animations are crisp, and it was like that pretty much out of the box on day one. I think they nailed every aspect of the game as well. Mechanics, world building, storytelling, and pretty much everything around it. It's a brutal, gnarly, and unforgiving journey. Lies P, just like Lords of the Fallen, has 3 endings, and it will take you some time to get all of them. I also want to add one more thing that is very subjective, but I think Lies P has this magical feeling to it, similar to the one I experienced playing Dark Souls 1 for the first time, like the game has a soul or something. Lies P is great, and it's defo my number 1 Souls-like game of 2023. We have some really cool titles coming this year, so here's hoping that 2024 will also not disappoint. And my number 1 should be pretty obvious by now. It's 2 games in one again, and I don't feel conflicted by combining the 2 because if I haven't, the end result would stay the same. And I'm talking about Nioh 1 and Nioh 2. Both Nioh games are sometimes referred to as Dark Souls for crazy people, but honestly calling them Souls-likes doesn't do them justice. There's just so much more to them in terms of unique mechanics, both simple and complex. I'd say that Nioh games are an infernal crossover between Soulsborne's and Ninja Gaiden with the loot system of Diablo. The best thing about Nioh, and when I say Nioh I mean both games, is how much in control of your character both games allow you to be. It's just ridiculous. For example, the combat revolves around 3 stances, high, mid and low, and you can switch between them on the fly mid-combat. High is good for blocking and lets you deal more damage, but obviously your attacks are slower. Mid's the average and a nice balance between the other 2, and it's good for parrying, and low is perfect for dodging. On top of that, you have various weapons to choose from, and each one of them performs differently depending on the stance. Every weapon has a skill tree where you can unlock new moves and add them to your moveset and really shape your character the way you want them to be. And I'm barely scratching the surface here right now. From Software games are difficult but satisfying to master with their elegant simplicity. They have a small but solid set of mechanics that you will eventually grasp and, start soloing her. Where Nioh games take the exact opposite approach and just throw in a shit ton of complex mechanics, skill trees, stances, and other mumbo jumbo from the get-go. And the sheer amount of it is so intimidating. But once you get the hang of it, the gameplay loop becomes so fun and satisfying, again, because you feel in full control of your character, and it's your character, the one that you made yourself. I know that Nioh 2 had a lot of optimization problems on release, but right now both games work perfectly, the way Wulong Fallen Dynasty should have worked a long time ago. When it comes to replayability value, both games have so much content to offer. You can easily spend hundreds of hours playing each game. And on top of that, there's a multiplayer co-op. You can play/finish the game with a friend. It works great, by the way. Bottom line is, Nioh games are fantastic and they are so much more than just Souls-likes or mere Dark Souls clones. And if I had to pick one game to give it the gold, it'd be Nioh 2. I find it to be the refined version of Nioh 1. And that's it for today. Let me know in the comments how your Souls-likes ranked list looks like. Maybe throw in a few games that I didn't mention. Like this video, subscribe, and check out my other stuff on this channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MightyMelvo. All links are in the description. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.